right, so we're just going to jump right into it here. I ordered a repfitness zero gap bench, the 5000 series zero gap bench. Finally came in, and the first thing I do is I look over the box, see how the packaging is, and I noticed that there was this tear. Here's a close-up. I popped it open with my hand, and I thought I was actually seeing padding, but it wasn't actually padding. It was the frame, which we'll see here in a minute. There didn't seem to be any damage to the item, so I just went ahead and opened it up. It's definitely well packaged, good amount of padding, good amount of tape. Everything's packed in there really nicely. It's all in one box, and there's almost no room for anything to shift. Now, as a note, this first thing I'm opening here is the pad, and I'm opening it with a knife. And so obviously, if you're doing this at home, you'll want to be really careful that you don't accidentally cut into the cushion, which I did not, thank God. So the short box is the seat pad, and the longer box is the back pad. And the back pad is in there really good. I ended up having to tear the box apart after cutting it open. It was in there really good. But overall, very impressed so far, just kind of unboxing things. I had high expectations, and this thing definitely met all of the high expectations that I had. It actually exceeded them in some ways. So take all the packaging, and this is where that damaged box part, this is where the padding was damaged. But there was actually no scratches, nothing wrong. So kudos to repfitness for some quality packaging on their shipments. So for me personally, I took the actual frame of the bench and I flipped it upside down, because in my head I was going to be putting the feet on first, and it seemed like it'd be easiest to do it upside down. It was actually really easy to do, but I'm sure you could do it right side up as well. But like I said, I did it upside down, did my feet first and then my pad, and I thought it went really well. So those are the instructions that you get. It also comes with a little plug, which is for the footrest. And here is the bolt kit. Really easily, really nicely laid out. It does come with a little tool you see there in the middle and an Allen wrench, but I highly recommend that you just don't use the tool. And that was the plug. So the first thing I attacked was the roller feet that are on the back. It's very obvious which way is up because the black padding, the little black rubber pads on the edge of the frame, it's just very clear when you see it that that side is supposed to be down. Also, if you get this upside down, you won't be able to actually roll the bench around because the wheels are built in so that you can't get things caught into the top of them, but that also means that it won't work upside down. So I was looking at the directions there. Here's a detailed shot, but basically you want their capped nut, then you want the lock washer, and then the normal washer, and then tighten it up. A little tip I learned when I used to work on airplanes is when you're doing more than one bolt is just to snug, not tight, fit each screw as you go. What this allows you to do is move things around and make them fit. Once you have all the screws in, then it's a lot easier to tighten everything down and make sure that it's square. As a note on that, there is some play to the front and back feet, and so when you're going to tighten them down, there's that piece of crap tool. When you're going to tighten them down, make sure that you have the feet in the position that you want, because they do have enough play in them to allow some shift, and if you don't have them where you want them, then you're going to have some feet that aren't exactly flush or perpendicular rather to the frame. For most people, they probably wouldn't notice, but I would notice. It would bother me. Now I would go back and fix it. But I just used an adjustable crescent wrench. I could have used a boxed wrench or an open-ended wrench, but I just chose to use that because it's the easiest and I didn't have to guess on sizes. So at this point, I flipped the frame over and I made sure that it actually sat flush. And then I grabbed the large pad, and this is where I was talking about earlier. Get all of your screws started in the bottom of the pad. Additionally, on the pad, if you look at the very far left of the screen on the pad, there's like a small little detail. It's like a small little metal piece, and I think it's where that final seam, or that final stitch for the seam comes in together, and they use that to cover it up to keep it safe. I decided to put that towards the inside because on the seat pad has that little metal piece also towards the inside. When I say the inside, I mean where the gap would normally be if this wasn't an awesome zero gap product. And then I also noticed that, so there's 4 holes, and you can get to the front 2 holes easier if you have the seat slide all the way forward. And so I started the front 2 screws with the seat slide all the way forward. And once I had those in, and again, not tight, just started, I went ahead and slid it back. And that makes it so that the back screws are a little bit easier to get to. So there you can see there's the front screws, and they're exposed. And then when you slide the seat back, you can see those back screws would be hard to get to. When you slide the seat back, they become more accessible towards the back end. So if you're having issues during installation, just try playing with the settings. So after that, got the other 2 screws started for the back part. And again, this is all going really easily. Like I said earlier though, with the frame, how there's some slop built into the screws, there's also some slop built into where the cushions would attach. So when you do go to actually tighten them down, you want to make sure that everything is squared up and exactly where you want it before you start gurring on those screws. Otherwise, you could end up with something that's not quite lined up. Again, I don't think it would affect the functionality, but I don't like it when things don't fit. I prefer that things fit right the first time. I guess I have my dad to blame for that. Thanks, Dad. It's also pretty hot out in the garage, so it was like 106 degrees this day out in Wichita Falls in my closed garage, which was a terrible idea. But here's the thing, is my garage is closed, the fan is just blaring on me, and it wouldn't matter if the door was open or closed because it's all stagnant air right now anyways. So I decided to keep it closed. That way I could have my daughter out there with me and she wouldn't run off. So here's the 6 bolts. Everything's nice and squared up. And it doesn't take much, just kind of snugging them up. You don't want to over tighten them and risk pulling the nut piece out of the bench pad. And so I just went hard enough or tight enough that it wasn't going to move, and realistically this thing doesn't take that much force. And here you can see it on the other side. Same thing. There's a little bit of a clearance issue on these very back 2, but it's not that bad. So once I had the pad squared away, went ahead and flipped it over, making sure that nothing shifts around, make sure that nothing moves. And then I just kind of started playing with the features. So there's a screw on that pull pin for the front part, and you can tighten it up pretty good. It slides around really nice. It is heavy, I will say that. So here's a comparison of my old flat utility bench from Rogue and the rep bench. So the rep bench is the same width. It's about the same length. It's got a nice taper on the butt pad, which is actually really nice because it allows your legs to get a little bit closer. And in this video, they look about the same height, but I swear that it's not. And this is some training footage from that evening. And again, I can hook my heels on those front 2 posts just nicely, which is what I prefer to do during the bench. Nothing shifts at all. So we got to break in the new rep bench last night, and to be honest, my overall first impression is that this thing is awesome. Really no complaints about it at all, especially for the price. Yeah. Can you help me? The only thing about it that I didn't necessarily like, and this is a really small thing, is the amount of play that there seems to be. So I just tighten this up all the way, but it's the whole arm underneath here that's actually moving. And I think it's just kind of the way it has to be designed that it has this much play. But you can see how much the pad moves there. The only reason I bring it up is it's just one of those like, oh, there seems to be a lot of play. Now the nice part is that when you actually sit down in the bench and get that zero gap, when you actually sit down and you put weight on it, the play is kind of taken out of it. So there's really no concern with play. So once you actually sit down on it, it kind of takes that slop out. And I think that slop kind of has to be there in order for the bench to be able to easily adjust. The other critique that I had, so the branding is really nice. So zero gap up here on the front, rep over here on the back. So there's 90, 75, 60, 45, 30, 15. But it's only on this side. The other side of the bench over here has the rep branding on it. And it's mainly just these numbers because they're only on this side of the bench. So if you happen to adjust it from the other side, that's unrealistic though because the top pin is only on this side. So you'd have to be over here to adjust it up and down and see what angle you're at. Other than that, no real complaints. Some of the things I really like about it, and I'm comparing this to what I'm considering the Rogue variation of this bench, which is, I believe it's the Rogue AB-3. The Rogue AB-3 costs like $900, is definitely not a zero gap. There's a huge gap, and there has to be because of the amount of motion that this thing has to be able to have, the range of motion that R1, the branding on this Rep 1 is way better. The reason I like it, it's a small touch, but it really adds a lot to the bench. So the fact that this is like a laser cut piece of steel, zero gap, again, riveted to the feet up here, laser cut steel, and this only costs $500. The Rogue AB-3 cost $900 something plus shipping. I also like that this handle is fixed. On the Rogue AB-3, this handle is actually up on the seat, and it goes up and down. The nice part about that is I guess it wouldn't hit your feet if for whatever reason it came out front, but that's not very realistic. But it gets stuck all the time, so it'll get like stuck to the side, or it's just inconvenient to move around. With this being fixed, when you pick it up, you pick it up. So first impressions after doing the unboxing and the assembly, after using it for a chest dominant workout, are that this thing is solid. The pad is nice and thick. It's slightly softer than my flat utility bench, but still has that firmness. It's almost like just that first couple millimeters of padding are just a little bit softer, and after that's just all support. It doesn't bend at all outside of the supports. There's actually 3 support pieces, which gives it plenty of support to the bench itself. It's nice and heavy. I like this foot that comes out front. I like the fixed handle. I like the branding. It's easy to move around. But like I said, everything on it is solid. It's nice. Rep has obviously put some thought into this, and my only real critique is that there's just a little bit of play. But like I said, once you're actually on the bench, you take the slop out and there's no longer play. Love the zero gap. Adjustments are easy. There's a screw knob up here so that you can adjust it where you want it, and then you actually tighten the bench down so that it doesn't move on you. Like to tighten the pad down so it doesn't move on you. And the bench settings for this front pad go all the way from -15 all the way up to 45. Sorry, all the way up to 90. Oh no, 45. I'll be careful, Emma. And it seems like no matter what angle you have this set to, you can always close that gap. So there's always a zero gap. I don't know why I'd ever use a bench like this, but if you did, you would have a zero gap. So that's my unboxing and initial impressions of the Rep 5000 series zero gap bench. If you like this video, please give me a like down below. And if you click over here, you can subscribe to my channel, and click over here for some training videos, or down here for another video from my channel. Thank you for watching.